This is Beyond a Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Gary Smith.
There's no better way to start a BRD than have an awesome Dawson. Welcome. Hi, Gary. How are you?
I'm great.
And what an embarrassment of riches today. I thought at one point as I was thinking about today, that maybe we'd start with the accused down in Belize who was chasing her partner with the camera. Then I was thinking maybe we'd start with the South Carolina case, which is rapidly becoming quite interesting. And then out of nowhere, the U.S. Supreme Court comes down 9-0 in two cases, or 8-1 in one and 9-0 in the other. And the one that I just think is so ironic on a number of levels is the one where the California courts all the way up had ruled that a DUI conviction stood where the accused in that case was apparently playing his music too loud. Talk about a pretext stop. Drives into his driveway, into the garage. The cop follows him in, arrests him for DUI, gets convicted. He does a motion. The motion's denied in every California court. Actually, the U.S. Supreme Court takes it, and thank God they did, because if there's ever going to be a stop to kind of the ridiculous justification of the intrusions into the home, this was a good case to start, because they had made meaning the government, had made every justification about even to the point where they had concocted up a fleeing misdemeanor, which is, ironic. And the court 9-0 said, no, you have a right to your privacy at your house. Your cops can't just follow you into the garage and claim that they were exigent circumstances, meaning something was going to happen if they didn't flee into the house without a warrant or anything else. And they made a demarcation. I mean, and they didn't have any trouble doing it. A conservative, liberal, it was 9-zip. There was some concurrent opinions about the fact that this didn't mean necessarily that if they're, famously in LA, if they're somebody who is in a car chase, that they couldn't chase you or try to pull you over when you've committed a felony or a robbery or anything else. But this was a case where at best you had an infraction of playing music too high. And Gary, you've heard me before talk about my father's favorite line is that there are more guys in state prison for broken taillights. Well, playing your music too high is right up there with a broken taillight in terms of manufacturing probable cause.
Right, absolutely. And, it's very good that they did strike it down, because if they hadn't, then basically any cop who could argue that he was already pursuing you is able to enter anywhere that you go, your home, a friend's home, a family member's home. And that's just no good. I mean, look, Mark, you alluded to the embarrassment of riches at the top. And I think it's hilarious because there's also a Supreme Court case, also 9-0, that we haven't even mentioned yet, that we covered a few weeks back on Reasonable Doubt and Beyond a Reasonable Doubt, of the girl who went on Snapchat and was saying, fuck you, to her whole cheerleading team. The Supreme Court came down this week and said, all good, go for it.
And by the way, I remember all the angst about formulating a rule or this or that, on campus, off campus, what about bullying? And boy, they just came through and said, well, maybe we'll decide that down the road. But right now, this doesn't stop from bullying. It doesn't stop for anything else. It's an amazing run at the Supreme Court when it comes to free speech and property rights. And interestingly, you take that case, you take the case where they said that the union organizers could not come onto your property if you were a landowner, which I don't know if that was 9-0 or 8-1. And that case, they said you've got a right in your private property. I'm going to make a prediction that, and I'm going to use it. That's one that shows you can't take somebody's property, meaning saying turn it into a public enterprise without compensation. And they cited the property in the takings clause. Well, guess what? In these COVID cases, that would seem to be spot on. And that's going to be an interesting way to play out, because the government has, for whatever reason, seems to think that they can intrude in every single arena, whether it's the sanctity of your house, whether it's your privacy in your business, whether it's the privacy of your brain to articulate speech. It's an amazing series of cases. And by the way, everybody who was complaining and talking about the split at the Supreme Court, please take note of the 9-0, 8-1 decisions that are coming down. Although I think the one for the union organizing was 6-3, but there's a surprising amount of unanimity at the Supreme Court here, and a reversal of the lower courts, and that's why I pointed out the California case. The California case, it used to be that California was way out in front of the U.S. Supreme Court when it came to protecting individual rights. And
those were the days.
Those were the days. Is right. The pendulum swing has come back again, and it's fascinating to see. I really, there's a couple of things still yet to come. It'll be interesting to see. Now, the other case that you and I have both talked about that I think is really unreal is the South Carolina, right, where the mother and the son were brutally murdered and they were both 2 generations, 3 generations of the locally elected prosecutors. As of today, there's news that the 2021 double murder here has now caused the SLEG, which is the
South Carolina
acronym,
Law Enforcement Division, correct,
to reopen a case from 2015. And Gary, you know the facts of this because we've been texting about it.
Yeah, I do. It's fascinating, man. I mean, this story was a book or a movie already before we got to today. And now today they're reopening a 2015 murder of a gentleman named Stephen Smith, who was found dead in the middle of a Hampton County road with his head bashed in. The death was ruled a hit and run, and the medical examiner said that he must have been hit with a car mirror because his body was found in the middle of the road. Smith's death may have been a hate crime, as Smith was gay and, according to his mother, was in the process of discovering himself and his sexuality. And she further states that she believes her son was killed for being gay by several Hampton County youths from prestigious families, and that certainly fits the bill of what the Murdaughs were.
So we do love to speculate here. So what could have been found at the location of this most recent homicide that would cause them to reopen the 2015? What I'm speculating is they found some kind of written evidence, some kind of something that either mentioned this 2015 case or linked it up in a way that there was not something that had been reported before and could only have been connected by signature or else to the 2015.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's very interesting. It's also the details that have come out thus far surround the 2015 case are very unusual as well. The idea that somebody is hit in the head with a side view mirror of a car in a road in the middle of nowhere, that doesn't line up to me. To me, that seems weird. But this case just keeps unfolding, and it's going to be fascinating to see what else comes out about it.
Well, remember, this is the second kind of case in the news involving some connection to a prosecutor and a hit and run. Mm-hmm. We had talked earlier about the case of the attorney general, and he had thought he had hit a deer and came back the next day, found a gentleman, unfortunately, had passed away, had been hit, and was being prosecuted there subsequently as well. So it's, the fascinating stuff. I read somewhere today where somebody had said this has all the makings already of, as you said, of a John Grisham novel. I mean, it's a whodunit. It's a what's the motivation? I mean, there's just so many layers to this that you could talk about. I mean, they also were talking about finding a cell phone outside as opposed to inside, which I thought was interesting too. Could the evidence that they were talking about that reopened the 2015 have been something on the cell phone that somebody had snatched grabbed, looked at outside, then discarded. And that, I'm sure they're not releasing any of that. In fact, they had, in response to some FOIA requests, they had released a series of police reports that were heavily redacted, but there really was nothing that you could make out of them.
No, they were boring reads. I looked into it. But I'll keep reading boring stuff because we'll find those nuggets. We'll find that stuff that's interesting for you. That's what we do here at Beyond a Reasonable Doubt. And
then the last thing that I guess we'll finish up with, we still have a minute or two, is today the New York State licensing authority revoked the license of Rudy Giuliani, and they used, speaking of speech, they used his speech to various courts and said that he was not honest with the tribunal, and because he was not honest with the tribunal, meaning the courts that he was appearing in front of, they were going to revoke his license on an interim basis until, and apparently, and maybe I had just missed it, there's been briefing on this because they wanted to summarily do it. And apparently they were not persuaded by the briefing. And there was part of the things that I had seen is that Mr. Giuliani was saying he had been told these things. And they said, well, who told you that there was election fraud? And he had been told something else. And they found that not convincing for purposes of the interim suspension. If he's going to fight this, I think that you're going to see an amazing kind of unfolding of whether there is evidence and what they were relying on and who told them. And I think this kind of cuts across several other proceedings that are happening so far, the defamation cases, the revocation of Linwood's pro hoc status and things of that nature, where it's an interesting collision between your right to practice and your right to free speech.
Well, I'm quite sure that come Saturday, you guys will have a conspiracy theory or two about the cases we've been talking about, and I look forward to it. To everyone else, I just want to thank our sponsor, Oklahoma Smokes. You can go to itsoklahomas.com. That's ITS, Oklahoma, and then the letter S.com. And we will see you this Saturday for the best hour in the universe. Mark, thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Beyond a Reasonable Doubt. Stay tuned for more bonus episodes coming soon.